You're listening to the Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS podcast with hosts John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Better Baseball MLB DFS Playbook Live show here for Tuesday's main slate here, James. We had 3 games on a Monday to kick off the week, but it is the final week of the MLB regular season, and we pretty much have loaded slates throughout the rest of the week here, starting with 11 games. It's kind of been our big Tuesday slate all season long.
Yeah, Tuesday slate is typically the biggest one on the board, or that and Friday, at least during the week. So, yeah, an interesting slate. A lot of playoff implications on the line here, John. So there is still a lot of meaningful baseball. I mean, there's a lot of teams playing spoiler too. I mean, you're looking down up and down this list. Yankees are playing Toronto. Toronto currently jockeying for a wild card spot. The Cubs in Atlanta. Justin Steele and the Cubs hold the last wild card spot, and they have to face Atlanta to start the week. Like, that's not great. Houston and Seattle, could knock each other out, or whoever wins the series could essentially knock the other one out. So there's a ton still on the line heading into this final week, more than I think we've had in recent years. But this is also due to that extra team added in each league. Like we probably wouldn't have had this many teams still alive a few years ago, but it does bring more excitement to baseball. So it should still be a very fun week of DFS. And unlike, the sport that you and I cover every day starting next month, NBA, end of the year does not, I mean, there is barely anything to play for, and you don't see any starters playing.
Well, I will say the new the new rules for the NBA with resting multiple stars and all these things, and minimum games played in order to be eligible for all teams, and like that's going to change. Maybe change, or maybe these players don't care about being an all NBA or anything like that. But yeah, I agree. And we'll talk a lot about that during the NBA season. We do have the Dodgers in Coors on this slate. That's obviously the big one here. We finished the year out with some Coors games, large slates with major offenses in Coors. Obviously puts a lot of rostership expectations likely going in those directions. We do have a couple of potential rain situations we'll watch over, one of those being in Atlanta. Chicago, Atlanta, we know summertime in Atlanta. I guess fall now?
Oh, it's officially fall. No, it's fall.
In Atlanta now, but still.
You should see my house, John. Trust me, I know it's fall. I mean, we have the wreath, we got the mat, we have candles.
So the decorations for you are fall, but you're still dealing with 80 degrees. Unlike in New England, where it was actually 55 and rain today. So we were feeling it. And then we have the White Sox also dealing with some potential rain in Chicago. So things to pay attention to on this slate here. Before we do jump into the DraftKings slate, though, shout out to our friends over at RT Sports. If you go to rtsports.com/alarm, use promo code alarm23, new users will get a 100% deposit match up to $200. I had a really good RT Sports Pick'em day this past Sunday, just game stacking that Chargers Minnesota. Hit the 40xer, James. So rare to go 6 for 6, but we got it done on Sunday, and you can too. And you can use your deposit match money to do so. So go check that out when you can. We have RT Sports videos out each day to get you ready for this upcoming NFL slate. All right, that aside, break into DraftKings now. We got 11 games here on that main slate, as we talked about. Pitching is a little interesting. Again, 2 guys up over the $10,000 mark. One, and Kevin Gausman is at 11.5 here against New York. We have talked a lot about right-handed pitching against the Yankees this season. We've also talked a lot about having Kevin Gausman has seemingly screwed us anytime we put him in our lineup.
Dude.
10 strikeouts shutout against the Yankees last time out, 10 strikeouts against Kansas City 2 starts prior. I think you just have to go back to the well here with Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, I mean, he's dominated the Yankees this year. If you look at the 3 starts he's made against them, 20 innings, 2 earned runs. John, 31 strikeouts in 20 innings. It's just, so you think about that in 20 innings. I mean, he's averaging over 10 strikeouts an outing against the Yankees this year. So this recent outing, he had 10 the last one, and he had 11 the outing before. It's actually been just the domination of the Yankees. And as you mentioned, it's,
we've played him
the
against
writing.
like other teams this year, and he's gotten lit. But yes, I would agree with you. It's one of those things where if you're a poker player, you're like, oh, I always lose with aces, and it's like, no, you don't. You just remember losing with aces. Like you win with aces way more, and it's the same thing with Kevin Gossman, obviously. But
Right.
you definitely remember putting him in a good spot, and he gets rocked. You're like, son of a gun, here we go again. But 100% in on Gossman. It's an 11-game slate though. He's 11-5, and we have the Dodgers in course. I'll be very curious to see how many people get to Kevin Gossman at 11-5. Where are you going after that, though? I mean, Eflin against Boston in Boston feels a little iffy. Justin Steele gets Atlanta in Atlanta. Don't love that. George Kirby against Houston. We've gone down to Bailey Obertrain a few different times. Again, one of those spots where it's like you feel like he's hurt you more than he has helped you, but it's Oakland, right? And Oakland's been the chalk starting pitcher matchup for a month now.
My problem is Bailey Ober has no longer pitched deep into games. Like, you can't. July 23rd, John.
Mm-hmm.
That is over 2 months since he's last given us a sniff of a cold.
It was weird.
Like,
What's
he's
weird
not even.
Is like, so 78, 73 pitches, obviously, but then 93 and 97, he just hasn't been efficient enough to get there. So I'm encouraged by the pitch count, at least.
I don't disagree, but like it just doesn't give you any confidence. Like some of these matchups, John, twice against Detroit over this span, once against Kansas City, twice against the White Sox. Like none of these matchups are like outside of what Texas and Milwaukee.
Yeah. I will say those are at least divisional matchups. Sometimes they have a better book on you, but I agree. Those are not great offenses that he is struggling against here. I'm just telling you, I think there's going to be some pretty good rostership on Bailey Ober here.
Well, I'm going to pivot. I got two pivots.
Give me your pivots,
for
man.
you, okay? Braxton Garrett, 8,600. I know the Mets have been good against left-handed pitching. Dude, Braxton Garrett might be having one of the more underrated seasons as starting pitcher this year. I would say, like, especially lately when you look up and down the ledger. He left that Dodger start, which was unfortunate. Or he didn't leave the Dodger start. He just threw a lot of pitches in the Dodger start. But outside of that, like, really dating back to a start against Colorado, which was random that he was bad against. July was the last time he pitched poorly. Yeah, well, he has pitched extremely well since.
That's what I think did him in a little bit too. At least in the minds, I think of fantasy managers were those July starts, right? He finished July with the shutout against Detroit. They got rocked against Colorado, Baltimore, kind of banged up a little bit against Philly and Seattle. Not terrible, but he was cruising going into those starts. Came out of July with like a 6 ERA for the month, and everybody's like, he kind of regressed a little bit, but he hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs since then. So I'm kind of with you. The strikeouts are nice. It is the Mets. I know we just shut them out as well, so that's good. But Howard Bender talks about this sometimes. A pitcher facing the same team 2 times in a row. Sometimes they have a better feel for how they're going to be attacked. Alonso and Lindor and those guys can hit lefties pretty well. I don't mind it though. I think he's a guy. He's certainly a viable play. Plus, even though Miami is considered a pitcher's ballpark, you look at his home road splits: 2.52 ERA on the road this year versus a 4.4 at home. So could be a good spot. All right, he's your one other pivot. Where's the next pivot for you?
Right under him is Seth Lugo, 8,400 against we talked about it a lot last week, and I was telling you, like, just use pitchers against the Giants. They have fallen off a cliff. Everyone is bad offensively now. Wilmer's banged up. Like, this offense is just abysmal. They're now 2 games under 500 after like being in the thick of the wild card race the entire season. And you could see the writing on the wall when they didn't sign Aaron Judge this offseason. Their offense was just not up to snuff. Mitch Haniger and Michael Conforto were their 2 biggest signings, and that's obviously come back to bite them in the last season or the last month or so. And on the flip side, Seth Lugo, another guy that you look at and you're like, maybe he should have been a starter his entire career because he hadn't been going into this year. I know he had the tough start against Houston, but he's bounced back really nicely. 6 innings, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts against Oakland, and a win. 6 innings, 2 earned, 7 strikeouts against Colorado. And again, the Padres are 9-1 over the last 10 games. Like, they're actually tied with the Giants. Both teams technically still alive in the postseason. they'd have to have some drastic change, like the Cubs getting swept by Atlanta and the Marlins getting swept and all this stuff. But Seth Lugo, good line to get a win against a struggling Giants team in a great
Yeah.
ballpark, by the way, because they're playing in San Francisco.
Yeah, Lugo's been pretty good this year. Another, you want to talk about surprising
Yeah.
starters, right? I mean, we were kind of picking against him earlier on in the year, and then he settled down. It's like, all right, guess we're in here for the long haul. We get down to some value. I don't know. Again, not a lot that I've like found myself gravitating towards. I think Andrew Heaney maybe a little bit at $6,800. Just for strikeout potential.
Well, you segued that perfectly for me. Thank you. We're done talking about strikeout potential. There's nobody with more strikeout potential right now than $6,000 Michael King.
Sure.
I know it's Toronto, John, but I mean, 13 strikeouts against Toronto his last time, and he had 8 and 9 strikeouts in Boston and Milwaukee the 2 starts prior. Like I'm not saying I'm like all gung ho about Michael King like using him here, but dude, he has 30 strikeouts in his last 17 and 2/3 innings. Like this is another guy who is being used as a reliever, and they're like, you know what, maybe he's good in like long.
It's good to see the pitch count get where it is at now too. 79, 87, 101 in the last 3. So they're letting him ride. So good to see.
So the only thing about it is if you're playing Gossman, you're not playing Michael King, right? That's your
well,
one.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, he's only $6,000.
Sure, that's fair, and that's why when you said Heaney, I was like, well, I get it. I'm not saying I disagree, but like if we want to talk about strikeouts,
he's lost his last 2 starts and had 20 and 36
insane
fantasy points. So
sure, he's had 20. I mean, look at the last. So he became a starter in late August. He has gone for 17 fantasy points in 5 straight.
So I wouldn't hate, again, it's probably going to be a super low play. And as I mentioned, maybe you don't see a lot of people getting Gossman because they'd rather go the King Ober route here or something. But I agree that King is in a really good spot here. Again, Heaney for me, I know the innings haven't been there lately for him, but he's going to rejoin the rotation. So, you know, you're just kind of expecting maybe that pitch count to be up now a little bit more. And LA's, you know, what is LA at this point? So
yeah,
but you're right. You'll save a lot of money going to King on a big slate. I got nothing else here though. I'm not looking to pitch anybody. If Jose Urena shuts down Arizona, I'll be pretty upset. I know he handled Washington pretty well the last time out. Got banged up by Minnesota, but threw like 4 no-hit innings against them at first. So, like, yeah, but this should be an all-in Arizona day. So,
I would say the only other name maybe Joey Lucchesi, but it's not like I'm not like entirely confident there. I like Braxton Garrett on the other side. Lucchesi has pitched well.
Yes.
Last 3 starts he's made 3 earned runs.
Miami early the year was obviously pretty good against lefties. They have Soler back, right? So
yep. They're pretty. I mean, their offense is outside of. I mean, they're pretty full strength right now. Their offense. I think Arias is day to day. I don't know if you saw what happened to him, but just poor guy. Poor Marlin trying to get back into this race, huh?
Yeah, no kidding, right? All right, let's move on over to the infield position. 11 games here. Obviously, a lot of targets to attack. Where do you find yourself looking first here?
Where do I find myself looking first, and why is it Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman? Well, they're in cores first and foremost, right? I know they're the second and third highest priced plays on the slate. You'd actually be paying $800 and $700 more for them than you would if you used them plus Michael King. So I mean, they get Ryan Feltner. 5.13 ERA might be the best on the Rockies staff this year, but 5.13 ERA is a 5.13 ERA. I know he's coming off 5 scoreless. He got shelled against the Dodgers earlier in the year, and you know, just another guy at home 6.75 ERA. He's allowed opponents 3.14 batting average in his 3 starts in cores. So really hard not to gravitate immediately to the Dodgers guys. I think this is a very good Dodgers slate. Max Muncy at 5,500 as well. He really stands out. For other infielders, I mean, I know it's a tough ballpark to hit in, but Manny Machado gets a lefty against Kyle Harrison. I know Harrison's a very highly coveted prospect, but we've talked about it a bunch lately. Like San Diego's offense has been really good for what it's worth. They have returned into the offense that they should have been earlier in the year, and if that was the case, they'd probably firmly be in the playoff right now. If this team showed up earlier in the year. Josh Jung gets another lefty at $4,800. He gets Reed Detmers. We know his left-handed hitting pedigree has been on full display all year. And same can be said about Ha-Seong Kim at 4,700. We know Kim has been dynamite.
You get three Padres players with shortstop eligibility here. So
yeah, I mean, just make it make sense, Sean. Make it make sense.
I mean, you can't play Kim. You can now. Okay, he's at second base again. So 4,700 for him there at second. I'm curious to Christian Javier. This one, I don't mind Crawford against him. Sure. For shortstop play. Nato gets a lefty. If you're not in on Heaney, we know Nato has hit lefties really well for some value at short as well there. Some first baseman that I generally find myself gravitating towards a little bit here. Again, I'll stack anybody against Urania. So Christian Walker is someone that I'm in. Ketel Marte is somebody that I'm in on. Gabe Moreno, that whole crew. So I'm pretty much looking to get these stacks going here.
Yeah, a stack we might be able to get as well if you're not in on Joey Lucchesi and you think Lucchesi has been a little bit of a fugazi here. The Marlins,
sure.
who again are in their half a game out of the final wild card spot behind the Cubs, and Jake Burger and Josh Bell are on fire right now, hitting in the middle of the lineup. Jake Burger hitting over 400 his last 10 games.
Is he gonna hit 40 home runs, you think? Where are we at, bro?
No, we're probably not going to get 40. Probably ends like 35, 36. He slowed down a little bit going from he's been a better hitter for Jake Burger overall than he has been like a power hitter in Miami. In Miami or in Chicago, he's just hitting home runs, right? And then Miami, he's hitting the middle of the order. He's just mashing like gap to gap, just getting on base. I don't know if he's read the story. His wife was watching one of his games and called him up after and said that he needs to make an adjustment, and he made it, and he's taken off since. So shout out to Jake Burger's wife for that. But Josh Bell, another guy, 3,900, hitting over 400 over his last 10 games, and he hits well from the right-handed side of the plate. So the Marlins, other than Luis Arias, who's not confirmed out for this game, but he did step on the baseball and then tripped over it again when they were in the dark. I mean, it's just, what are we doing? But yeah, I think the Marlins are really interesting here, especially at the prices. They're not expensive whatsoever.
If you're not on Bailey Ober, obviously Geloff hits righty as well. Note is a lefty, so if you're fading the Ober chalk, a couple of guys you can get to in Oakland. In the outfield here again, loaded up top: Acuna, Betts, Judge, Julio against Javier, Bellinger. We haven't talked a lot of Cubs against Elder, but Elder's kind of slipped a bit here. Belly at 62, Tatis gets the lefty, and Harrison, Jordan, Carroll, Martinez, like all elite plays, and we've only not even talked about a guy under 5,500 yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can play any and all of them. It's hard to like necessarily choose a favorite. It's hard not to like JD Martinez in recent form. I told you the other day, like I love JD Martinez. He's hitting righties and lefties right now, and he hit a home run yesterday or Sunday, I should say. 2 for 4, 2 doubles, like still gets you there. So I love JD Martinez. Hard not to like Jordan in any format. I would say, I guess Mookie is by default my favorite. JD Martinez is second, and then Tatis probably third.
That's fair. Moving on down the list, where do you look to go? Any other like obvious standouts for you in the lower 5K tier, upper 4K range?
Soler, probably. I mean, righty lefty, he mashes lefties better than almost anybody in baseball. Probably another guy who might hit 50 home runs if he played a full season this year, 133 games, 36 home runs. So I would say Jorge Soler is the one that stands out to me the most in the low 5K.
I'd agree with you. I like Nolan Jones here. I know Miller's pretty good,
Yep.
but I'll take Nolan Jones the way he's playing in cores. Feels pretty good. I don't know how many people will play Atlanta against Steele, so you could have a low rostered Atlanta here. Have a
And Steele's been bad last two. Dude, he's been shelled the last two
yeah, but
starts. 12
it's
earned.
still like we're
No,
kind of a
great.
good player, right?
No. He's been great, but I'm just saying 6 earned against
Yeah,
Pittsburgh, 6 earned against Arizona and back. Could just be one of those things. He's thrown 168
sure.
innings. He's made 29 starts. Like that's not something he's done
Yeah.
before.
So I like Ozuna. Obviously, if you know we get there. What are our thoughts on Blackburn? Do we go back to Minnesota? We didn't mention any really in the infield. Kepler sitting here at 45.
Yeah, I mean we can. It's Minnesota's obviously a better ballpark than it would be. The only thing you have to worry about Paul Blackburn is he's a guy who doesn't allow a lot of home
Mm-hmm.
runs. Just 10 home runs in 20 games, 5 over his last 10. He's a ground ball pitcher, so um, you can get to Kepler. No, I'm not like I'm very indifferent about the Twins.
Okay.
I think in general.
Tanner Houck struggles against lefties. He's pretty nails against righties. They have a 299 slug against them, a 260 WOBA. But lefties have a 530 slug against Tanner Houck. So, Josh Lowe is a guy maybe you take a look at 44.
Yes, and Josh Lowe also been stealing like a madman lately again. So, um, if the guy gets on, he runs and he has a lot of power. He's gonna be a 2030, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
2035 guy by year's end. I'm sure a lot of people
Definitely not.
projected that for him this year.
Saya
So,
against Elder, Outman against Felton.
yeah,
They're two guys also in the low 4Ks.
yes, Seiya has been great. Um, this is who the Cubs wanted last year, and they got him for like a month, and then they didn't get him until
Mm-hmm.
like 2 months ago this year, and then he's been a monster. So I think Saya's just until he's like approaching 5K is
Yep,
just
I
too
agree with
cheap.
you. Where are we going under 4K?
Under 4K. I mean, Joe Adell is interesting against Heaney,
Mm-hmm.
only because the power. Jared Kelnick has been okay lately. I know you gave him a shout the other day, and he's a power speed guy. Like he has, despite only playing or
Yeah,
despite missing a lot of time, 11 home runs, 13 stolen bases. Like he was on pace for a bunch of home runs and a bunch of steals, just kind of like his profile
yeah.
suggested. So Kelnick,
Weiler
thirty eight
keeps
hundred
killing it
dollars
too at
makes a lot of sense.
$3,600. I don't know if he'll be in the lineup, but he
Dude,
should be. But 362 at a
he's
982
good.
OPS, like he's never fallen off since being called up. He's been a couple bags, some power, pretty good play.
Yeah, he's just a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good player.
Turning into a steal that Christian Vasquez trade, getting in Manuel Valdez and Weiler Abreu for a catcher the
That's
Astros don't
crazy.
even have anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes these guys know what they're doing, even though the GM's no longer the GM of the club. So
That's well that I feel like that wasn't exactly like the best or the most favored
well, the
move
team
for
needed a
the
lot more help,
from
and
Boston
but you
club.
know what? He identified some good young players for the Red Sox. But let's see, you can go against Detmers with like Leotes. I'm fine with that.
Grossman,
Dude, Lourdes is
Grossman
only
31. He hits
36.
lefty as well. Yeah, the whole Rangers outfield. Oh, Lourdes Gurriel. I know. Well, remember the other? I think it was the first slate I was back. It was against Luke Weaver, who
Yeah,
shut
I
the
know, dude. So
Arizona
sad.
offense down. I think Lourdes was like
Yeah.
$3,300 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I would definitely play Lourdes versus Urania there. 36. Let's see.
Tyrone Taylor, $3,000.
Yeah,
He's been hitting home runs lately. He gets a lefty in Zach Thompson. He doubled down the other day. He's hitting 300, almost
sure.
1,100 OPS last 10.
Oh, man. All right, let's build a lineup. Then we're gonna plug King in. I like that call. You want to go King in like Lugo? Right,
Yeah,
King and Lugo gets us 44.50 a play here. We're gonna plug
of course.
And what
Yep.
Freeman, I guess, and see what we can do here.
If we don't want to play, well, hold on. If we don't want to play Freeman, I don't think that has to be that automatic. JD Martinez has been as good as Freeman, probably better, like consistently when he's been in the lineup from like a
Okay.
DFS standpoint. I know Freeman's the one hitting 332, but he's also played 154 games, and JD's played not like 100 games and
Sure.
has 7 more home runs
I'm
than
gonna
him.
go Moreno at 29 because I don't like I don't like Jose Urena. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
Moreno
yeah,
hitting
just,
second these days. Well, he hit second without Ketel Marte, but hey man,
he's a
guy
good
keeps
player.
producing.
Let's see. First base here.
There's a lot of IL on this list, huh? Holy
Let's see if we can do
smokes.
a little Arizona stack. Christian Walker, 39.50 for a third, short, and outfield. Yep,
Jake
Burger.
Burger,
Yeah, I like Burger
45.
45. What was our value outfield down here?
NATO was a value third or
I'm good with that.
shortstop if we wanted to go there. 30 or a little John Birdie double dong action the other day. He's hitting 455.
We're not,
455 over his last 10 games. We don't have to play John Birdie. I'm also just saying that John
that's
Birdie
crazy.
is back.
That's a crazy style. I mean, it's cheaper. I'll go Birdie. That's fine. 4,100 for two outfielders. We definitely had a 3K guy down here that we were in on. Who was it?
Any Rangers outfield,
Yeah,
or
Lourdes,
Lourdes Gurriel, or
Lourdes gets us 46. 46 gets us. What do we want to do here?
could
I do
I was
Outland?
gonna
No,
say
Outland's-
I was gonna say Charlie Olives, but
I mean,
what do we got for the rest of the Dodgers outfield? I think
well, I
Hayward's
bet
been
Outman's there.
decent.
If we didn't do Burger, let's see. If we save a little money, can we get Carroll here? What do we need to do to get Carroll? Carroll gets us. We have $3,500 third baseman. What would we do? We want to do like Willie Castro versus Blackburn.
Yeah, he just hasn't. I feel like
Eddie
he's been
Jr.?
out of the lineup a lot.
Caminero?
Yeah, hell yeah,
Bucks.
Caminero for
$29.
sure. Yeah, he's a goat. He hit lefties really well at the minors, but like he also just.
So we got a little Dodgers and Arizona stack with the one off Birdie, one off Caminero. King and Lugo as our pitchers. $600 left over, so you can play around with it if you need to go up or down. More than happy to do so. We'll have the playbook out for everybody. Who's on the playbook? Freeland? James? Henry? Henry's on the playbook. So be on the lookout for that. Get us in Discord. Get us on Twitter if you have any questions, and we'll catch you guys later.